Welcome, everybody. As you can hear, the voice box, the bill payer, is not functioning at a super optimal level, everybody. Going to the dry, high desert and then returning has given me, and doing 6 hours of radio yesterday didn't help the fact, help the fact today. So the guys may be jumping in a little bit more. We've had a pretty interesting pre-show production meeting. Question of the day, and the reason this came up is because of the dialogue between all of us today. Is Steph Curry a top 10 player all time? That is the question. I don't think he is a top 20 player of all time as of yet, but this is very adamant that we ask this question so everybody can have a conversation around it. Okay. We got a great show to get to. Many great topics. Jonathan Rifkin with us, Guy Guasco, and Charlie Moss will be joining us shortly. But today, I don't know if a lot of you guys follow The Bachelor. I don't. I've never seen an episode of The Bachelor. But one of its contestants and former NFL player, Colton Underwood, today came out as a gay man. And I got into an interesting conversation with a friend of mine around, whether an NFL locker room would be open to this. Because I thought immediately, I said, if a player who is actively playing would come out and show that it's no different, it's the greatest thing to have different types of people in locker rooms, the diversity that already exists that brings people together in a football locker room would still exist with a gay man in an NFL locker room. It really would. It would change lives. It would free so many people. The idea of having an open conversation and the fear of the unknown disappearing. But we haven't seen that yet. And to see it play out in real time today, I thought was really special. To take the courage to do something like that. I remember the first time I came out and talked about my issues, and mine were self-inflicted, right? And this is something that you're born with, right? And you're confused for so long on who you are and whether you should actually be your true self to somebody. The idea of lying to yourself is so consuming to your mental health. It absolutely wreaks havoc on it, on your central nervous system, to be able to be open and honest about who you are. Now, the next question is the accepting nature of people, right? That's the bigger issue. I think most people are fearful of telling you who they really are because they're fearful of how you're going to accept them, or rather not accept them. And that's why we've never seen that. And I know for a fact that there have been many gay players in the NFL, and who have been really, really good players, physical, none of the stereotypical things that people associate with gay men. And it's always stunned me that someone who is so close to one another in a locker room that you're willing to share a ton of intimate things, not be able to share some of those more personal things. And the more and more we see things like this happen, and somebody like Colton Underwood come out and talk about it, it removes power. It removes power from it. And I know we're going to see an openly gay man who's a star in the NFL. I know we will. And it's going to do a number of things for so many young men and women who are dealing with that at a much younger age and are looking for somebody to follow. And so I commend him on his journey and what he's able. Excuse me, guys. I don't know if the show's capable today, everybody. So we'll see how it plays out moving forward, but I commend him and congratulate him on a wonderful thing he did today in America, for himself, for all the people out there who continue to struggle, as a beacon of light. Now, shifting gears a little bit, a big article in Sports Illustrated was released today on Trevor Lawrence. Very interesting. And I only mention it because some of the things he said in it. Now, it's not a surprise that he said it because it's kind of the person he is. But there's some avenues of, would you say anything like this if you weren't Trevor Lawrence? Like if Justin Fields said something like this, does he fall out of the first round? And that is the bigger question in all this. Josh Rosen a few years back said similar things about I could walk away from the game right now and be fine. He almost has, in the fact that he hasn't been given a chance to play. But he fell in the draft, but he fell to 10. Trevor Lawrence is a generational defining football player. And he says something like this. But talent-wise, Justin Fields is just the same. If somebody like Justin Fields or Trey Lance said something like this, would it be accepted like it has been? I really don't think it would. I think it would be absolutely blown out of proportion and almost as a enabler for those out there that say, hey, I told you so. He doesn't care about the game. And then why does anybody not rush to Trevor Lawrence right now and say, guy doesn't care about the game. Why would you draft him number one? If the guy's just going to give up on you 2 years from now when things aren't going good, or if he's like, hey, I want to go do something else, make bricks and baby bottles, down the line. Why does this not affect Trevor Lawrence? Well, clearly the race part of it comes into it, right? It really does, and it's almost thrown a huge spotlight today, and people are talking about it. Your guys' thoughts. Take over as much time as you want. This guy's struggling today. So, what are your guys' thoughts on the double standard that exists for a white Trevor Lawrence, who's picked to be one of the first quarterbacks picked, and Justin Fields, who seemingly continues to fall down the draft with a ton of speculation around nothing? And we're going to spotlight Justin Fields today on the show.
I think it's unfortunate, and I think this Trevor Lawrence situation is getting exciting down the stretch here. And I'd mentioned this last week when we were talking about the draft and all the quarterbacks, and it's kind of the surefire number one. He's almost everybody's number one. I heard an interview with Adam Schefter and Chris Sims the other day that I thought was really interesting. Chris Sims, former NFL quarterback, of course, and he talked about how he has Trevor Lawrence number 2, Zach Wilson number 1, and a lot of people, have been giving him flack for it, but he's on record pulling out Mahomes over Trubisky a few years ago and having Josh Allen higher than Baker Mayfield and such over the last couple of years. So he's just seeing things differently, and I wonder if because Trevor Lawrence has been Trevor Lawrence since high school, he's just had this kind of coast. And I'm not saying he hasn't earned things. He's obviously played very, very well at Clemson. But I wonder if it's just the magnitude of who he has been and what he's been for the last 4 years in the public eye that's kind of given him this again, free ride seems harsh. I don't mean it like that, but giving him kind of a clean slate all the way to the end here. And now we're coming down to the finish line. I think there's more people kind of not questioning him per se, but now looking at Justin Fields and other quarterbacks to see if maybe if there's any way Jacksonville either trades out of that spot for ransom.
No, not at all.
Or take a different quarterback.
Trevor Lawrence is the best quarterback in this draft. He's the best quarterback we've seen coming into the NFL in 2 decades, probably. Maybe since Andrew Luck. He is by far the best quarterback. So let's not get that twisted on this. I just think that there's a double standard to this, regardless of where you think he is on talent.
Yeah, but I also think, unfortunately, the double standard is elevated because of his talent, right? Like the double standard exists regardless of if he's talented or not. I think it's just the subconscious way that the evaluators are approaching him. But talent becomes almost a rationalization. It's like, yes, you have Trevor Lawrence and you have a crap ton of space, and then you probably have Zach Wilson and then a little bit of space. And I'm not sure how big of the space is between Zach Wilson and 3 through whatever. But we know the space, just pure talent wise, between Trevor Lawrence and the second pick, which will probably be Zach Wilson, is massive, right? And the rest of the field. And so I think because of that perspective, the double standard is elevated, which is even worse, right? I know we have to extract talent out of this, but you can't, because that's how he's being evaluated. And at the end of the day, we see talented individuals in athletics and otherwise get away with all sorts of crap because of their ability to go out and make money for the umbrella organization that pays their bills, right? And I think that that's unfortunately what is the driving force behind these conversations at the end of the day.
Justin Fields, Justin Fields makes these comments in his Sports Illustrated feature, right? He makes these comments today. What kind of effect do you think it has on his draft status?
I don't know if it necessarily, like come game day, but I think the questions surrounding it deepen, right? The perspective now on Justin Fields.
No, I mean, seriously.
Do you do you think that Justin Fields is a talent? He's a top 4 quarterback in this draft. Do you think that he would drop below that if he made these comments?
I do. I think people would. I really do.
I know people might say, "Oh, he should not be drafted," but the team sitting there with an opportunity to draft him you would assume is gonna pull that trigger. No,
you'd think, but as I pointed out and shown you guys evidentiary proof, all the Shield cares about is its brand, and if you're bad for its brand, you'll feel it.
Yeah, we have definitely seen a number of players over the years at all positions and all draft capital fall due to character questions and concerns. Like
the thing, the thing is that this isn't character. This is interpretation of one's values.
Yeah.
This isn't a character flaw at all in anything that Trevor Lawrence is saying, or if Justin Fields would say. This is a decision made by others around values that you hold. And if your values don't match up in terms of, like, if you are not all about football, 24/7 about football, then there's a problem with you. And I don't know if you're the right fit for our team.
Didn't Nick Bosa come out before he got drafted supporting, not trying to get political in any way, but came out supporting Trump, and people like cancel culture tried taking over, and he was still taken as a top 3 pick or top 4 pick in that draft, right? So we've seen the situation where the people try to go at a player. Now, obviously, Justin Fields is in a different situation because Nick Bosa.
Well, if it's something that it's something that you can't quite be sure of, then it surely wasn't impactful enough for it to make a difference. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's based on how it's valued by the team at that spot. Everybody else can value it. Society can value it a certain way, but is it really going to affect the team at that time needing a quarterback?
I know the Jets had a much higher, which doesn't really matter now, had a much higher grade on Josh Rosen than he did of Sam Darnold at the time at 3. So I know that for a fact. He dropped to 10, and it was almost like Arizona was just picking him to pick him, I guess. It was a weird scenario.
Ryan, do you remember that evening when Josh Rosen got picked by the Cardinals? His reaction, and I don't remember his comments verbatim, so I don't want to guess, but he was clearly extremely disappointed, probably somewhat embarrassed that he fell. He went to the Cardinals, which at the time were not an aspiring franchise to go to, and he was clearly miffed and just upset in that kind of post-draft interview right away. Do you think that in general has affected him long-term, because he's really never had an opportunity? And if things like questioning the desire to play at the NFL level and being able to perform and you're right, eat, sleep, breathe football for the next 20 years for Trevor Lawrence, if that is at all at question, is that something, do you think, with his talent and pedigree, that would even be a factor for him?
For Trevor?
Yeah.
Well, I think the next transformational quarterback in the last decade was Andrew Luck. And in the way that he retired after kind of a really good big-time comeback year, I think opened the eyes of a lot of young quarterbacks at least some at the very top of what they do, having a different understanding about who they are and how they can contribute to this world. And I like it. Don't get me wrong. I love what Trevor Lawrence said. Like, hey, I don't have to put this imaginary chip on my shoulder to motivate me. I think manufacturing that is a problem. I think it does more damage than it does good. And I'd agree with him. I know what it did for me. It made me resent and despise a lot of people and think I was better than a lot of people, trying to get over it because I had been treated so poorly growing up in my home state by my hometown. And they were my chip. I mean, I put them right there saying, you know what, I fucking told you I was going to do this. You know, that's what motivated me for the longest time. And then when you get to the place where you need support and you need help, but you view it as weakness because of how certain people have treated you and things like that, they can be incredibly damaging. And I think that's all he's trying to say. I think that's all he's trying to say here.
I do find it interesting, and I wonder too, and I'm not questioning Trevor Lawrence at all, but Andrew Luck retired. I think, you know, the amount of injuries and times he was hit throughout his career piled up just far quicker than anybody had assumed it would. And I think, just grew tired of that. And then, you know, it kind of led to other things, and then he eventually retired. With Trevor Lawrence, you know, again, I heard another, you know, interesting comment with Trevor specifically, that he's coming into the NFL married as the number one pick and all those things, and how that might benefit him in a number of ways, keeping him focused, not having extra distractions, the number one pick, you know, having all the publicity and all those kind of things. And he seems like a pretty even keel kind of, you know, chill, low suds guy anyway. And maybe the NFL just expects and wants the tenacity of certain players we've come to love. Tom Brady on the field, Baker Mayfield, you know, that cockiness.
I don't think the NFL does.
So
I don't think the NFL does. Yeah, I don't think the NFL does. The NFL could care less as long as they get a guy that can perform. But it's a fan,
fans,
right?
sorry, yeah.
It's a fan deal. So, hey, everybody, I know you guys come here to listen to me and the boys together bantering, but they're going to take it over. I'm a freaking mess, as you can tell. I cannot get 2 words out of my mouth before this becomes so scratchy to make it a problem. So Jonathan's going to drop me. These guys are going to finish the rest of the show. It's a great show. We'll spotlight Justin Fields on Friday. Take it away, boys.
Feel good, boss.
Feel better, man.
All right, later, Ryan. I guess it's the RDL show.
All right. I'm ready to go to war.
Oh, this is going to be a disaster. Everybody, have you noticed that this is the first time Charlie has spoken this entire time?
Well, as one of my friends in the chat said, Russell, he said the over of 1.5 nose blows just finally hit.
Confirmation bias begins.
Oh my God. I'm done with you. Let's go on to the topic.
My
I'm ready.
migraines. All right, guys. So basically, this is all out of left field. Sky, Charlie, and I guess are going to take over.
Yeah.
Let's go to Sunfair. Ryan's still in the queue. I don't know what's going on here.
Ryan's out. Let's crush Sunfair time.
Let's crunch Sunfair. All right.
I like the attitude, Sky.
So Ryan just left. But as you've noticed over the course of the past few months, you started to look pretty good, right? You look at the bottom picture, a little pale, some extra flab, but the abs are still present. Then a couple months later on the Sunfair diet, you start to see the progress. The dude hasn't worked out in quite some time. And then up at the top, that's Ryan now, right? And you look at those abs, look at the tan, look at the confidence, the composure that he poses himself with. That's all from the Sunfair diet. Make sure you head to sunfair.com and enter your information. Select Carl Farrow as your sales representative, and then select the RDL show, the Ryan D. Leaf show, from the drop-down menu of how you heard about them, and you'll get 10% off your first order. Sunfair, health is wealth. Take care of yourselves. Ooh, I like it, from the RDL show in the chat. All right, Sunfair doing a great job. Let's get the boys back out there. I mean, as much as I love seeing Ryan's abs, we're gonna switch it up here. All right, Jadeveon Clowney was recruited to sign with Cleveland over the course of the past few months. Most people who are avid on social media saw on Twitter Myles Garrett tweeting at him. I think Baker Mayfield subtly liked one of his posts. I mean, there was really a social media frenzy, if you will, from the side of Cleveland to get Jadeveon Clowney, and it worked. This guy is going to get paid. I think he's $8 million guaranteed with $2 million with the added incentives. So he can make up to $10 million for 1 year. And guys, here on the RDL show, what do we always say? You pay who? Quarterbacks, the guys who protect your quarterback, and the guys who get after the other team's quarterback. So Sky, Charlie, Jadeveon Clowney to Cleveland, and the folks in our chat too. Was this, how do we view this signing? Was this a big pickup? Was this a value play for Cleveland? Is this just a great way for Jadeveon Clowney to make some bank until he gets to his next team? And also, Rob Berger, I appreciate the acknowledgement. I got a softball game to call right after this, so I'm trying to keep the energy high. Does this make Cleveland a contender?
I think it's a good addition. I don't think Jadeveon Clowney is necessarily what he used to be. He's had 3 sacks in over a year, I believe. So I think this is just a good addition to the defensive front, but it won't be too impactful, I believe.
Yeah, I agree and disagree. I agree that Jadeveon Clowney is not who he used to be. Former #1 overall pick out of South Carolina, absolute animal when he got drafted, immediately got injured with the Houston Texans. And the dream for Houston for 5 years was J.J. Watt on one side, Jadeveon Clowney on the other, wrecking that quarterback. And they only had a number of games where that was even possible because one of the two guys was always injured and never really panned out. He goes to Tennessee, he goes to Seattle, whatever. I do think this is a huge move for the Browns. The Browns defense has gotten significantly better. And look, Mahomes going down, Chase Daniel in or not, they should have beaten the Chiefs in the playoffs, period. They should have. Things happened. Mahomes went down. The Browns had a significant opportunity to beat the Chiefs, and they didn't. They have a great secondary coming back healthy. They have quite a few draft picks. They have a great defensive line. Myles Garrett is arguably the best pass rusher currently in the NFL off the edge. And now they have Jadeveon Clowney, who at minimum has the clout, has the pedigree, has the draft capital to at least garner attention. And that's going to pull double teams off of a much approving linebacking core and front line there for the Browns. So, Charlie, I think you're absolutely right. If this happened 4 years ago, this is a monumental pickup for the Browns. It's not anymore. Like J.J. Watt going to the Cardinals is like fun to talk about, but we'll see what happens. However, I do think for the Browns as a team that's already getting better, young, and on the ascend, having a guy hopefully with that veteran presence that can help the younger guys. And look, even if he gets 65, 70% of defensive snaps and you can just keep him fresh on first and second or only third downs, I think it's a fantastic upgrade in one of the few positions, in my opinion, that the Browns actually needed an upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 1 year. So if he gets injured or he doesn't pan out,
I think
they get rid of it.
The due diligence with that point, Sky, was done by Cleveland, right? If it works out, great. Re-sign him and maybe find a way to not give him 3 years, $35 million. But I don't know, maybe franchise tag him and see how that works if you guys win. There's a myriad of options that Cleveland has to be able to keep Clowney if this experiment works without going into luxury, without sacrificing opportunities to sign more meaningful assets. Because I don't think Ryan Leaf just pulled Avonte Davis. I like that, Russell Cohn. Okay, you're earning some stripes here, Russell, on the show. But
well,
all this Charlie Haas content in our chat going by the wayside.
Let's hope it's not Avonte Davis because Avonte Davis never came back. Just throwing that out there.
Also true. Well, neither did Ryan Leaf. So,
well, we do have Friday to look forward to.
Oh, we're talking about the show. I thought you meant NFL career.
So it's also interesting too. I mean, again, I think like pedigree wise, and as far as the fan base and a Cleveland franchise that has been bottom laughing stock of the league for 40 years, basically, since the Otto Graham days, before they finally turned it around over the last couple of seasons, excuse me. They're now a playoff contender. In my opinion, if Baltimore slips up at all, Cleveland's going to take that division. The Bengals aren't there yet. The Steelers are no longer the Steelers, in my opinion. If the Ravens slip up, it will be the Browns division, which is huge. And that's a massive turnaround in the last 3 or 4 years. The pedigree on that team now, they have 3 of the last 7 #1 overall draft picks: Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, and Baker Mayfield. So these guys are still active. They're still playing at a high level. They just got to keep Clowney healthy. And if they do, I really think they're going to benefit. The Steelers' offensive line has been great forever, but they lost a lot of guys this year. The Ravens have lost some guys as well, and we know how bad Bengals offensive line has been. We'll see what they do in the draft. But if the Browns defensive line alone can get enough pressure on these quarterbacks, that secondary should be great if they stay healthy. And straight up, I mean, I'm rocking the Brownie cap today. I'm on the Browns hype train fully.
How do the Ravens mess this thing up? Because we've seen like one season of Lamar Jackson not looking like what we saw the first two seasons out of him shouldn't be a red flag. Like it shouldn't. Like the guy had to go take a dump and ran off the field one time, and all of social media absolutely destroyed him for the next 2 weeks.
Well, they won that game.
They did.
You know what? And you know if he didn't
against the Browns,
they beat the Browns.
He didn't go relieve himself.
He took a Brown and then he drowned the Browns.
Game. So I don't get why everybody was so mad at Lamar Jackson. Like if you were out playing a sport, you would be in pain too if you were having irritable bowel syndrome, and you're going to want to take care of it too. So that I don't know, but that joke aside, Lamar Jackson, it all falls on him, right? Like the pieces are in place, and yes, they lost a tight end, but they have like 3 more tight ends on their roster. They do a great job managing their tight ends. It really
their line.
Does it, and a good line? Does it come down to the defense for the Ravens? Because the
100%.
offense, for me, it's still the best offense in that conference without
it's the best
on the field.
It's the best rushing offense of all time, literally. They will be able to move the ball on the ground versus anybody. However, again, if you're not able to blow people out, and look, I love Lamar Jackson. I think I was one of the few people on my fantasy football podcast when he was coming out that was vouching for him. He won the Heisman at Louisville. Won the Heisman at Louisville. People don't realize how good of a passer he can be. They haven't had any weapons for him outside of Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews, in my opinion. So we'll see what they do in the draft. But overall, the Ravens defense has driven them since the Ray Lewis, Ed Reed days. And if they're not going to be a top 5 defense, which they still could be because of the coaching and the scheme, I think they'll be okay. But they did lose a number of quality players. Their offensive line and their defensive line is not going to be as strong as it was last year. And we know ultimately, yes, quarterbacks obviously are most important. A great running back, receiving core, whatever is important. But you win the NFL in a division like the AFC North against teams like the Steelers and the Browns. You win those games in the trenches. And I'm a little bit concerned this year. Look, the Ravens are going to be great. They're with 17 games to play. They'll probably win 12. 12-5 seems fair for them at least. They could even win 13-14, depending on how things fall. I'm not saying they're going to be bad, but I don't think they're going to just run this division like people expect. I think the Browns are legit. They're on the ascend. The Bengals, if Burrow can get healthy and they get a couple quality draft picks up front and fix that defense, they could get a couple upset victories. And the Steelers are still going to be a 10-win team. So it's going to be nasty, and this is easily the best division in the AFC, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Leaf needed to take a throat lozenge break, so he will not be hosting the rest of the show. Sky, Charlie, and I are on the rest of the way here for the RDL, counting on the final 31 minutes. Anything else here on the Clowney news? Because as much of a conversation as it is, there's not really much to it, right? I think that the reason that it's sort of circulating through social media is just the NFL hasn't been, besides, I don't want to call the Deshaun Watson situation exciting at all, but besides that, the draft coverage, there's not really much else going on. So I think that the Clowney situation, like the Russell Wilson conversation sort of died out. Everybody's sort of in place, and now we're waiting for the draft to happen before we see what other pieces get moved around here. So I really think that, I mean, I'm good on this conversation if you guys want to move on, but if there's anything you have more on this.
Go ahead, Charlie.
No. I was going to go to something else. You go first, Guy.
I'll just end it on this. And then a quick note on OBJ as well. We can move on from the Browns. Yeah, look, again, Charlie hit it on the head right off the bat here. This is not a 5 years ago Jadeveon Clowney. But again, if he can be third downs minimum, and if nothing else, he takes up 2 blockers and lets Myles Garrett one-on-one, that's literally all he needs to be there for. And if Myles Garrett can be one-on-one most of the time, he's already a game wrecker like Aaron Donald is with double and triple team. If he can get more single coverage on third downs, they're going to be in trouble. Joe Burrow's coming off of a gruesome injury. Lamar Jackson is very mobile, but takes a handful of sacks if he doesn't commit to the run. And Big Ben can't move at all at this point, let's be honest. So I really think this is a huge move, less about Jadeveon Clowney and more what it means for the Browns overall.
Charlie, really quickly before you transition us here, I feel like Sky would get this.
This is what I was going to say. I was going to say we have a
Yeah, we
trivia
have some
question
fan
from
trivia
Russell
here.
Cohen.
Yeah,
Sam,
go ahead, Russell. First of all, I appreciate the trivia questions. Without
knows.
much time to think about this, I'm going to guess it's Tyler Eifert only because
Oh,
he had
it's so
13.
So
he
it
had
is.
he had 13 touchdowns, and I'm trying to think if it was 2015 that was the case. So I'm trying to think of AFC North Court tight ends recently. Mark Andrews wasn't there yet. Wasn't a Steeler. And let's see, Bengals and then Browns.
Jesse
Browns haven't
James
had a tight end in years.
Oh, wait. It could have been
Barnage.
Jordan
Barnage.
Cameron. Jordan Cameron.
Oh, Jordan Cameron.
Jordan Cameron.
I'm gonna
Russell.
I'm gonna go Barnage.
Tell me I'm right,
Russell.
Tell me I'm right, Russell.
All right. I'm kind of with you, Chuck. I think Jordan Cameron might be a decent call here.
Gary Barnage is going to be my dark horse there, but I like the trivia question, Russell. Okay, quickly, guys, let's go over this. And here's the is it a good idea? Incorrect. Well, we'll get there. I do appreciate it. I haven't thought about it much. Should the Browns trade Odell Beckham Jr.?
You were right. You were right.
Oh, it was Gary Barnage.
Yeah. One hit wonder. Great call. I didn't even think about him because he played like 13 games one time in the NFL. Great. That's like Peyton Hillis trivia, where like you don't even remember he existed. But Russell, well done, buddy. Thank you. Don't sleep on Tyler Eifert, by the way. 1,313 in 2013 or something. Amazing. Should the Browns trade Odell Beckham Jr. coming off of an ACL, multiple injuries? He played 6 games before the injury last year, full 16, 2019, and then the year before that he only played 4 games. He just hasn't been the same since coming over from the Giants to the Browns. Look, he's a huge playmaker. He's a big, a brand guy. He's a big personality for the NFL. I think unless you just straight up don't like him or the Browns, you root for the guy. He's fun to watch when he's healthy, but he just hasn't been. Baker Mayfield is literally better and more I was really excited, actually. I'll ask Ryan on Friday. I wanted to ask Ryan's opinion on the argument that Baker Mayfield is quote unquote better without his best receiver, because statistically he is, because he's not forced to throw to Odell Beckham. He puts it all over the yard and his numbers are better and the Browns are winning more games. So curious there. In my opinion, if they can get what they want for Odell Beckham, yes, they should trade him. If not, then they should ride it out. And look, Odell Beckham, and not to turn into fantasy, but Odell Beckham right now is one of the biggest values in fantasy drafts because people have completely given up on him.
Yeah.
I have no.
Yeah, I have no. I agree with everything you said.
No, I think that Odell would be a solid pick. Go send him. Well, they're not going to send him in the same division. I was going to say you send him to Pittsburgh, put him alongside
no way.
Appreciate you, Russell, but it's not going to happen.
No, they'd put him back. They'd put him back in the NFC, I'm sure. I mean, look, as much as Giants fans don't want to hear it, you know who could really use a receiver, and I thought was going to get him when he left New York? Philadelphia. And I think he would love the market. Jalen Hurts would be a beast. He's got anyway, Philadelphia would be my dark horse if they get rid of him. I don't think they do. He's very expensive. He has a huge contract still, but the injuries have piled up, unfortunately. Thankfully to him, he's still young enough to overcome this stuff, but it's piling up quickly. And I'll tell you right now, if he loses more than a game or two this year, he may just find himself deep on a roster at some point and fades out of the league, because health is wealth, but health matters the most. And
I think Odell is built different, though. I think we're going to see.
I hope so.
We're going to see what we saw after the age. Well, the conversations that we're hearing right now with Odell, we're having with Odell, is pretty emblematic of what happened with Adrian Peterson, right? After he got injured both big times, and he still came back to be a productive back. I think that Odell Beckham will always have the bare minimum talent to be relevant in this league. I don't think it's going to be like an Antonio Brown situation where he gets buried after a mental drop off. I really think that he'll find a way to stick around.
I hope you're right. I'm rooting for him. I just we've seen prolific wide receivers and running backs go by the wayside due to injuries. And look, it's fluke stuff. And the big thing was, I mentioned Tyler Eifert earlier. It's just kind of random, but Tyler Eifert has been injury marred since 2013, but they're such fluke injuries. They're broken bones. They're not like the problem with Odell Beckham, and Alshon Jeffrey has you too, still does. And now look, Alshon Jeffrey went from Pro Bowl every single year to to cut because
cut
in 2 or 3 years,
Yeah.
because he has lower body issues and there's soft tissue issues. Now, a torn ACL is one thing, but it's
Rob,
really
go win some for us. Put 100 on 18 black. 100 on 18 black.
good luck, Rob. The biggest issue is that when it's soft tissue and when it's lower body, with the receiver and the explosiveness and the route running ability that Odell Beckham has, the reoccurrence of the injury is very high, and the struggle to stay healthy, which we've seen with him in his career anyway, is an issue. So look, I'm rooting for him. It's going to be incredible when he's on the field. But we see with Julio Jones, who in my opinion is still the best wide receiver in the NFL, when he's on the field, he's absolutely dominant. But he gets injured and it's starting to pile up on him. And I just worry about him. Thankfully, he's still relatively young as far as the NFL is concerned.
All right, before I'm getting a little sleepy, so I need my adrenaline to pump. But before my adrenaline gets going, I think we have a sponsor to pay tribute to, and I think Sky's in the position to tell us a little bit about Athletic Brew.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm loving the Athletic Brews. You know, I've gotten pretty accustomed to getting to an Athletic Brew every afternoon in the evening. And the good news is I'm not a proponent of drinking alcohol on the job, and I'm certainly not a proponent of drinking alcohol while I'm working and trying to stay focused. But Athletic Brew doesn't have alcohol anyway. It's just a delicious taste of a microbrew. I love a microbrew. I love the good taste of a craft beer. And thankfully with Athletic Brewing, I can get that. So make sure to go to athleticbrew.com, 10% off of your first order. Ryan just got 2 6-packs in today. He was going to share with you all before he had to go unexpectedly. I have one right here that I've been nursing. I know my glare is a little bit bad, but this is Upside Dawn. This is a golden ale. They also have an IPA. It's delicious. And make sure you go and check it out. Tell them that RDL sent you. 10% off of your first 6-pack to Athletic Brew.
All right. I think that I heard through the grapevine that Ryan, because he didn't get his Athletic Brew until this morning, the reason that his throat is pretty scratchy is because he wasn't able to drink it all weekend.
100%.
So,
I actually heard that as well.
Yeah, if you want to
well.
avoid the throat problems, make sure that you drink some Athletic Brew. All right, Charlie, I'm falling asleep here, man, and I need you to amp me back up. And I think that we have a conversation in place. I don't even know how much of a conversation it's going to be. I know that there's going to be some screaming and yelling, and maybe the gloves come off. But Ryan, before we got on air, basically just made my point that I made to you already and doubled down for me. So I'm feeling pretty good. Now, I know we have...
Oh, Ryan's
and he's
there.
watching.
There he is.
Oh, okay. So here's the deal, folks. Before this shows, NBA's in full swing, right? Jamal Murray just tore his ACL. It's terrible.
Shout out to you, Jamal. Hope you're doing well.
Shout out
buddy.
Jamal Murray. The Nuggets were in place to potentially contend at least for a Western Conference Finals appearance. Without Jamal Murray, he's been playing really well lately. It's going to be really hard for them to get over that hump. Whether it's they face the Jazz in the semifinals, the Lakers, it doesn't matter. I think it's going to be really tough without Jamal Murray. So hats off, hearts out to Jamal Murray. Quick, speedy recovery and healthy recovery, of course, above and beyond. But that got us to thinking. Steph Curry just passed Wilt Chamberlain and became the all-time leading scorer in Golden State Warriors history. And the question of, is Steph Curry a top 10 player of all time? Now, there's a lot of different ways to answer this question. I want to preface what's about to happen because I promise you that the digression, Athletic Brew is like crawl into bed. Sorry. Even when he's not on camera, we're still feeling his impact here on the RDL show. I hope you're cradling your IPA Athletic Brew as you watch this ride.
That's a sign of a great leader, though. You know, still there for the team, leading by example.
I feel so much more pressure now knowing that he's sitting there evaluating our performance.
It's good. It brings.
I just hope the vibes get better in his house for him. That's all I hope.
Yeah, we're sending you Indiana vibes, Ryan.
Sending you good vibes, Ryan. Sending you good vibes, man.
All right. So, anyways, we started talking. There's a lot of different ways to evaluate the top whatever, right? Do we want to look at play? Do we want to divide it up era by era and, not extract Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Who else am I mean, just every Oscar Robertson, like all the Will Chamberlain, Hakeem Olajuwon. Do we want to extract all of those guys from the conversation because it's now changed to more modern era? Like, how do we want to evaluate this conversation? And in order to properly have this conversation, we all need to come onto an agreement of coordinating our valuation evenly. Otherwise, we're not going to have the argument will never be solved, right? So if you want to sit here and say that Steph Curry is a top 10 player of all time because how he currently impacted the game, well, then you're wrong. He's not a top 10 player. He has had a big impact on the game, and we could evaluate him based on his impact. But based on his play, he's not a top 10. He's not a top 20 player yet in NBA history. Based on the criteria of pure play, that's where we are. All right, now I open the door to our viewers. I open the door to you, Charlie, and Sky. If you want to get in on the battle, my guy, like, you are more than welcome to. I know as a resident, a San Francisco native and a Northern California rep, you may have some feelings of your own, and I would love for you to enlighten us because at the end of the day, Charlie and I could just be full of shit. So that's where we are. Everybody is up to date on this conversation. Charlie, I'm going to give you a floor because bless you, because I've been filibustering for long enough now. And I can see you prepping. Your body's already having a visceral reaction to how I just laid out this argument.
First of all, I hate how you think you're right about everything, because you're not. I'm going to say that to start off.
I'm right about the things I know I'm right about, man. I don't know everything.
No, but you may be right in the fact that Steph Curry may not be top 10 right now, okay? By the end of his by the end of his career, he will for sure be top 10. He'll be top 5.
He'll be a top 5 player of all time.
Top 5 player of all time.
But you're not okay. That's a completely different conversation.
No, but I'm going back to our discussion from pre-show on the impact of Steph Curry and how there has been no player besides Michael Jordan who's had a bigger impact on the game of basketball than Steph Curry. Plain and simple. I don't care if you say LeBron. I don't care if you say Kobe. I don't care if you say Yao Ming or Dirk. Steph Curry is above everybody else in terms of impacting the way the game is played. Period. Point blank.
Charlie, how old were you when Michael Jordan was playing basketball?
How old were you? I think you're 2 years older than me.
Okay, but I'm not arguing that Steph Curry and Michael Jordan are the two most impactful players in basketball history. I'm just asking you, were you able to? Okay,
but I'm going to reverse the question to you.
Were you able to appropriately understand the impact that Shaquille O'Neal had to basketball growing up? Were you able to? You really think that you had a grip? Because Shaquille O'Neal impacted the game of basketball more than Steph Curry did. I might have to walk off the show. I might have to walk off the show. At the time that Shaq was dominating, everybody wanted to be a big man. It paved the way for guys like Dwight Howard, right? It paved the way for the run the ball through the middle against the zone, how to beat the triangle offense. Shaq created a dynamic that we never saw in modern day basketball. We saw it with the old school guys back in the 60s, but then it teetered off in the guard play. We saw Magic. Gary Payton was in that. I mean, we can go on and on about the guards. But when Shaq came to play, man, at that time in the mid 2000s, when you were a wee baby or you were developing,
all right. So when I was a wee baby, right? I think you were 2 years older than me. So you were maybe a medium-sized baby.
I'm not arguing from your perspective. I'm saying you have to open up your mind to the fact that NBA, you are looking at through the lens of recency bias, and that's how a lot of society looks at it. But if you extract recency bias from this conversation, there have been far more impactful players on the entire game of basketball than Steph Curry, enabling players to justify jacking up 30-footers 15 seconds into a shot clock in a high school level.
Dude, it's a shooter's league now. He basically has eliminated the center position, like you said.
Now he's.
I know. Hey, I gave you your time. I gave you your time. I want my time now. He basically eliminated the center position. If you're a big man and you can't shoot, you're not playing. It's as simple as that. Okay, there's stretch fours now. Okay, like you said, Shaquille O'Neal back then, people wanted to dominate like he did. You got the Dwight Howards, you got the Yao Mings. Okay. Steph Curry eliminated that position. Tell me what Shaquille O'Neal did. Okay, he dominated. He went from team to team. He had every jersey that made him a rainbow. Simple as that. Steph Curry eliminated. He played on so many.
That's pretty dope, though.
Wait, why does that matter? Will Chamberlain played on like 6 different teams. Kareem that argument doesn't matter to this
it was just a little side comment I was saying because I thought it was cool. But my point is, like we said pre-show, why are youth growing up jacking up threes all the time? Why are they only shooting threes within 10 seconds into the shot clock? Like, that's because Steph Curry changed the game. He inspired.
That's a bad thing for basketball.
But my point is, it doesn't matter if it's for the good or bad. It's impactful,
bro.
Hold on.
Pause. This is where we need to come to an understanding.
I never said if it was for the good. I never said it was for the bad. I said in terms of impacting the game.
But people within context evaluate players based on the good, right? You don't sit here and be like, oh, the greatest leaders of all time, and then you don't go add guys like Mussolini and Fidel Castro, right? Those guys were great leaders perceptively by the people that followed them, but obviously they were not. They were impactful, but they obviously were for the worse. And that's sort of what
I don't know. We can. I don't think we can compare Mussolini and Steph Curry necessarily. I don't think that the correlation goes well together.
It does because he is not you can't be okay, let's change the conversation then. Steph Curry has not positively impacted the game of basketball the way that 10, 15 guys have. Is that a fair thing to say then?
I think it's fair to say.
Okay.
I'm not denying that.
Maybe we should just end there because I don't know how else to evaluate this conversation with you. If we're talking about kids shooting 30-footers today, then yeah, Steph Curry has the biggest impact today. But back in the day when kids were doing turnaround jumpers, they were yelling Dirk and Kobe, and Dirk and Kobe were the biggest influencers of that game. And when guys were down low and putting up and-ones and yelling Shaq was the like recency bias is the biggest part of this conversation, and it's not fair to devalue all the other impactors on this game just because Steph Curry right now is influencing the way that the kids are being brought up.
Yeah. All right.
Tell us in the chat if you feel like Steph Curry is a top 10 player.
So currently, I think currently it's silly to say that he's in that company. It's like the same conversation. Of course, Patrick Mahomes is much newer to the game, to the NFL game, but it's one of these like greatest of all time conversations, and Mahomes' name is already in it, right? Like he has to play a minimum of 7 more seasons. Just play them 7 more seasons and get to as many Super Bowls, blah, 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 to be in the same conversations as many of the greats, let alone Tom Brady.
Great. Wow.
So if you have Steph Curry currently in the top 10, in the top 5, I think that's overzealous. When it's all said and done, assuming he can stay healthy another 5+ years, I think he will be in the conversation. Absolutely. And when you're talking about the NBA Mount Rushmore, if you will, that's when you start talking about people that had changed the game and had the influence. I agree with Charlie in this aspect, for better or worse, of what a basketball, aficionado would say is better or worse for the game of basketball, what impacted the game the most. And a big part of that is the fan reaction and what it actually means. And the reality is Steph Curry, for better or worse, for, Pee-wee YMCA basketball, we have all these kids shooting half quarters all the time. I agree. It's terrible for the game, but it's fun. It's exciting. When they hit 1 of 13 in a game, it makes their entire week. And frankly, that I think keeps the game youthful. I am kind of old school in all my approaches to sports, and I like the Shaq style of the game, bearing down low, making points in the paint, and like being physical and stuff, the 90s style, if you will. But a regular fan doesn't care about any of that. They don't want that. That's boring. They don't understand the nuances of the game. What they want to see is more points. Steph Curry's put more points on the board, opened up the field for many other players. Now, Damian Lillard is routinely hitting, 35-foot shots just because
was one of the best games of the year.
Look, LaMelo Ball comes in at 19 years old as a rookie, and he's hitting shots 10 foot beyond the arc because he's been doing it for 5 or 6 years anyway.
LaMelo Ball's a perfect example of a guy who's shooting at a 3 for 14 clip, right? He's playing great. It's really fun to watch, but it's not good basketball. It's just not.
I agree. And I guess I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth on purpose, where I'm not necessarily taking a side. I'm more just saying it isn't great for the game of basketball what Steph Curry has done. However, for the fan base, for the attraction to the game of basketball, now This is no longer the Jordan
Well,
nasty era. This is the points, the excitement, and the general fan era.
Yeah.
And Steph Curry has elevated it significantly.
There's a larger point about society with all of this, guys, and that's instant gratification, right?
Absolutely.
A 30-footer splashing in, a 35-footer splashing in. It's instant gratification, right? And we want that all the time. And I had a conversation with a kid on the basketball court the other day. He comes up to me. He knows I'm a sports broadcaster. Shout out Chino Hills. Russell Cohen says, "Yeah, man, that team was sick. 3 ball boys in Okongwu. That was, 33-0 CIF state champions, one of the best high school basketball teams of all time. But all they did was cherry pick LaMelo and let Lonzo bring up the ball, and this dude would score 90 points because he would stand in the backcourt the entire time. That wasn't real basketball either. But when they played real basketball, they were also dominant. But anyway, I digress. The larger point about instant gratification, a guy came up to me and said, "What do you think of YouTube basketball players?" I'm like, "What do you like? What do I think about them?" He's like, "Yeah, like they're so cool. Like they do all this cool stuff, and like it's really fun to sit and watch for hours. Like I watch it for hours." And I was thinking to myself, like, how do I not shit on this guy too much? Like, truthfully, because these YouTube basketball players are the infrastructure created around these games is all offense. It's how can we showcase as much skill as possible each and every moment. And that's not basketball. It's cool to watch. It's cool to guy do 360 dunks at Rutgers Park, right? But that's not basketball. And so these kids going and watching these YouTube stars thinking that you have to, every single time down the court, it's either a 35-footer, you're trying to go behind the back and through the legs and, right spin to the left post before you lay it up and in. That's not how it works. There's a lot more involved in the game. It's a lot more nuanced than that. And there's a reason these guys are on YouTube showing very niche skills and not playing at the highest level of the game. The reason that most guys are playing at the highest level of the game, there's 470 basketball players in the NBA, is because most of them know how to do the fundamentals the right way to stay relevant. Steph Curry's an anomaly. Damian Lillard's an anomaly. And there's tens of thousands of people out there that think that this is going to be the standard in the NBA, and it's just not. It's just not. Just like when Shaq dominated and when Kobe dominated and when Dirk came in and when Steve Nash was out there, right? We're seeing a cyclical pattern that gets lost in society and our fandom for the game. Now, I think it's going to change. There'll be another player. Maybe it's Luka Doncic when Steph Curry starts to calm down a little bit. Maybe it's John Morant. John Morant might be the next Dame Lillard for all we know.
Trae Young is nasty too,
right?
But
Trae Young.
There's a lot of shooters now because everyone's a shooter.
But my point is like guys like John Morant aren't shooters. He's not a three. Like
no, he's not a 3-point shooter.
LaMelo Ball is not really he can.
Well, not Zion either. Zion's not a 3-point shooter.
I think that what we're seeing now is the transition into the new era. And in 4 years, guess what? We're going to be sitting and having the same conversation about Luka or about Zion or about John Morant, or about the next guy that comes, Isaiah Mobley, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Suggs. We are going to have this conversation in a different light with a different person, but the context surrounding it's going to be the same. And that's how basketball works. So that's the biggest problem with these top whatever conversations, impactful conversations. It's all subjective. We go to the Northeast, people probably don't give a shit about Steph Curry and his impact, right? We do it because we're basketball fans, and here on the West Coast, for me and for Sky, we see him on our TV every night. We see jerseys. When I went to Oregon, I went to school with 80% of the people around me were the Trailblazer fans or Golden State Warrior fans. And that's how you understand and are able to evaluate a player's impact. Any more thoughts? That's my final thought on this. Is it's all part of instant gratification. I don't think it's great for the game, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. So.
I do have another thought, and we do have a comment I want to get to here, but let's rock our final sponsor first.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right, another sponsor, Bomb Banana Hot Sauce. A genius by the name of Johnny Moss and 3 of his college roommates from the University of Michigan came up with this hot sauce last year in their senior year of college. They were cooking tacos one night, and they started making some hot sauce, and since then it's been the birth of La Bomb Banana. So on the right, we got the original. I'm more of an original guy. And then on the left, if you like to do a little more spice, you got the spicy one. I use it on the eggs almost every morning. Very good, very delicious. Banana-based, not banana flavored to get that mixed up. But to order, you go to seekthespice.com. And if you want to get 10% off, you type in the promo code LEAF, LEAF, like a tree, as the boss man always says. Very good hot sauce, very delicious. Again, I'm not too much of a spicy guy. If you are, you're gonna love the muy muy as they call it. I'm more of an original guy, but definitely check it out. It is delicious, and maybe you got to try the bananaception one day. As we talked about at the other episode.
That's my jam.
How come he doesn't say? How come he doesn't say like a leaf on a banana Because bananas have leaves.
Yeah,
That's a peel though, like a banana peel.
But on the
It's
banana
just
vine, there's like I don't know. I just thought it would be more fun as a play to bomb banana, but that's just me.
fair enough. I'm still waiting for that banana hot sauce combo. We'll get there. I did have a
SeekTheSpice.com. Just saying, SeekTheSpice.com.
SeekTheSpice.com. Hit them up. Also, shouts out to Bomb Banana just celebrating last week their 1 year anniversary as well. So congratulations to the boys. I had one more comment, and then I want to get into a comment here in the comment section. So we mentioned Zion, and before Zion was doing what Zion was doing in high school and then at Duke and then now in the pros, again, because of the Steph Curry era. And I think Steph is the poster child, because he's far and away the best at what he does. He will get the 3-point record from Ray Allen eventually, and he'll be climbing the chart, obviously, for points when it's all said and done.
Right.
But it wasn't necessarily cool to be down low, to be a big man, to be getting 22 points in the paint, and not shooting free throws, basically like Shaq. Shaq's knock is that he couldn't hit free throws, but he was put on the line all the time. Dikembe Mutombo, these big guys who were dominant, but they couldn't shoot free throws. Zion can do it all, seemingly. And what Zion did to put the big man and the position back on the map was he did it with flair. Everything you see from Zion is an insane video game dunk of some kind. Now, in high school, he was 2 feet taller than everybody, but even at Duke, he was doing it. And in the NBA, he's bigger, stronger than a lot of guys. So he's ripping the ball away from people,
Nobody
playing hearts out.
When he has a full head, no player in the NBA in a one-on-one scenario, not even Giannis. I don't care who you are.
He's dominant, and
he's efficient while being dominant too. He's not
exactly
chucking up 30 shots and shooting 10 for 30. He's like 15 for 18.
Exactly. And he's
34 points.
He's dominant and he's good at what he does. Also, I think the final thing is, like, for me, I mean, I'm not 6'8", right? Like, so I think there's more people who are closer to the body type of Steph Curry and are the long-range shooters because they don't play down low. They don't play defense the way that a big man can necessarily. So they have to shoot out and make a move and do a jumper anyway. So there's more people playing the game of basketball or that player than are 6'8", 7 foot, 6'10", who have been designated to the low guy to be, Anthony Davis, to be Doncic. I mean, to be whoever these bigger guys are. So it's more custom. Curry's made it fun for everyone to play the game of basketball. When Shaq was doing it, it was like, man, I would love to dunk a basketball, but I'm never going to dunk a basketball.
I would like to say really quickly, it's not fun to play with people who think that they're Curry. It's not.
No, it's not fun at all.
It's honestly when I say it ruins the game, like if you want to go and shoot around yourself, fine. When I play fives, I'm trying to win this game, and these guys shoot 35-footers and brink them most of the time. It's just not fun. It's really not, and it's really frustrating. People, when you're actively doing it yourself, you don't recognize it because you can rationalize it by saying, "Oh, Steph Curry, this is how Steph does it." But it's not a fun thing. All right, we have 1 minute. Get to the comments, guy.
All right, it was just interesting here, and I can I'm just going to take a hunch that Andrew Cray is with me, and maybe more of the OG NBA fan here. But this generation of players will not crack the top 10. The players of the super team era will not have the same gravitas of players who carried franchises. So this is to Charlie. I believe you brought this up on Monday, if I'm not mistaken. And this was more thinking, and we got in a big argument, which we don't need to do again. But the idea was that back in the day, in the 80s, basically before 2000s, basically, you had guys that were on a team for their career, and if they made a move, like Rodman from the Pistons to the Bulls, it was a huge deal that one guy made a move, Shaq from team to team. But you had guys on the same team for a long time, and they carried franchises, and they had the legacy. Stockton, Malone were Jazz players only, right? Gary Payton, whatever, Sean Kemp. So I think this is interesting because you have the super teams now, which now look, to Steph Curry's credit, so far, he has only been a Warrior. Now, if Steph Curry goes on to play for Team B, Team C, Team D, and by the time he's done, he's played for 6 teams, that might taint his situation a little bit. Like Kevin Durant has been a little bit tainted because of what he's done. I kind of like Andrew Cray's point here. I don't know if I agree with it per se. It never cracked the top 10, but I understand where he's coming from.
Super teams have been around since the beginning of the NBA. The perception of the super team is just now beginning to take effect. I'm just going to say that right now. We've had super teams around forever.
No, but I see his
Not like we
point,
have them
though.
now.
I see his point.
Because
Now,
the game of basketball is different. When Scotty and Michael were playing together, that was still a super team for that time.
But that was a super team.
Oscar Robinson,
they were drafted.
That's different.
That
That's super team within the same organization.
The Showtime Lakers in the 80s were not a super team. John Havlicek and Larry Bird were not. These were super teams for their eras. Absolutely.
No, right. But hold on.
No,
there
but
were super teams with talent. They weren't put together like cherry picking the best players from teams and putting them on a team.
Still existed as a whole. Like that's like say Kevin Durant gets an asterisk because Kyrie Irving and James Harden chose to join him when a GM put John Havlicek and Larry Bird together, or a GM put Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic. Like you shouldn't penalize a player because they want to go and win championships. I don't care. You just
but it's different when you're winning a championship, going through the tough competition versus teaming up like Durant has. Durant literally left OKC to join a 72-10 Warriors team. Like you can't say Durant's championship with the Warriors is the same as, I don't know, a different player, different from like Kobe's when he stayed with them in like 2009, 2010 against the Celtics. Like it's just different. It doesn't have the same effect.
Basketball is a dynamic sport. It might be the most dynamic sport, honestly. And I think that's why we have these arguments and have these conversations. And all of us, I don't think any opinions were changed here. And that's great. That's why we do what we do at the end of the day. But it is 2 minutes past the hour, which means that it's time to go. I have to go find a way not to think about this while being impartial to girls softball. I hope that everybody has a great rest of your Wednesday. Charlie, Sky, thank you guys so much for
see us Friday.
When our boss man had to go, I don't even know,
also
get a throat massage.
Jonathan, quick shout out before we get out of here. You can now catch the Ryan D. Leaf show via podcast on Leave podcast networks. You can download that anywhere you listen to your podcast. So if you catch this after the fact, or you want to just get us in your podcast regimen, go to the Believe podcast networks, find the Ryan D. Leaf show, subscribe, make sure you leave a rate and review.
We need it.
It helps us tremendously. Get your feedback. We always appreciate that. So we are now available via podcast, Spotify, Apple, Google Play, wherever you find your podcast, we're available there.
All right, this has been fun. Ryan, hopefully we'll have his voice back enough to host the show on Friday. If not, I guess it'll be the squad. I have a feeling that after Ryan watched this one, he's going to find the will to nurse his throat back to health to be able to host the show Friday. Guys, great job, fans. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. Keep those comments rolling. We'll see you on Friday. Sky Guasco, Charlie Moss, and Jonathan Rifkind, RDL show. We'll catch you on Friday.